Hey guys, welcome to another video where we're going to showcase elements of the free open source procedural map generator while we talk about world building. Today we'll talk about world building holidays. Holidays are a way for people to feel connected to each other, to their history, and to their beliefs. Holidays help communities remember where they've been and decide where they're going. In world building, holidays aren't just about adding flavor or filling out a timeline. Holidays show what matters to your world and what matters to its people. They create identity. They say, this is who we are. It marks what a culture values, whether it's survival, victory, their faith, or their family. Holidays tie the past to the present. And when people celebrate a holiday, they're not just living in one moment, they're remembering their ancestors, they're honoring old stories, they're passing those ideas to the next generation. But it's not just about unity. Holidays can also divide. They can draw lines between us and them. They can show who belongs and who doesn't. A national holiday might celebrate freedom, but it could also remind others of defeat. A religious holiday might bring believers together and ostracize outsiders. When creating holidays, think about who they include and who they leave out. They also have practical issues. They give people a break from the struggles of daily life. They let communities heal after loss or war. Governments can use them to promote loyalty and pride. Leaders know the power of a good holiday. It's a tool to unify or control a society. In your world building, holidays can do all of these things and more. They can show what your cultures believe in, what they fear. They can celebrate their victories and mourn their tragedies. And they can be an illustration of all of those societies' values. They can be moments of joy or reminders of what's been lost. And when you create holidays, you're not just adding decorations to a world. You need to add meaning. You need to make the world feel real. But where do holidays come from? They don't just come from nowhere. They grow out of history, rituals, and the needs of your society. When you're building a world, understanding where holidays come from will help you make them feel more real and more grounded. The origin story for a holiday tells you why people celebrate it and how it fits into that culture. Most holidays will start as a way to mark something important in history. Maybe it's a victory in war, a new ruler's rise, maybe the survival of a harsh winter. Think about Thanksgiving. These moments matter to a culture, so people remember them, and they make sure that their kids remember them and that their kids remember them. And over time, these become traditions, and traditions turn into holidays. In your world, think about the big events in history, those turning points: a rebellion that freed a nation, a great flood that changed the land, a hero who saved the people. What moments would be too important for the people to forget? Those moments are the seeds of your holidays. Now, rituals often come before holiday. Maybe they started as a prayer for a good harvest or a dance to call for rain, and over time these rituals grew into large celebrations. People add feasts and songs and symbols, and eventually they become holidays. Myths can also play a big role. Every culture has stories of gods and heroes and creation, and those stories give meaning to holidays. A harvest festival might honor a god of the fields. A New Year's celebration might tie into a myth about rebirth. In your world, think about the stories that the people tell. Which ones are so important that they weave them into the holidays? Natural cycles can also serve as an origin for holidays. People celebrate the changing of the seasons, the planting and harvesting of crops, or the return of the sun after a long winter. These holidays are practical. They help people keep track of time and remember when to prepare for the future. Like in Estonia, right? You're jumping over bonfires in the middle of the day, in the middle of the night. In a world with multiple moons or strange seasons, natural cycles could inspire unique holidays. So you could maybe, for example, have a desert culture that celebrates the rare blooming of flowers after a rain. Or a people on a frozen planet could mark the one day a year that the sun rises. Tie the holidays to the environment to make them feel organic, to those natural cycles of the world. Holidays can also be born out of times of change. After a war, people might create a day to honor the dead. Memorial Day, right? After a revolution, a nation might celebrate its freedom. These holidays remind people of what they've overcome, and they can unite a society. Think about your world's history. Has it faced disaster, a plague, a famine? Did its people fight a tyrant? Did a society gain independence? How would they remember these events? What kind of holidays would they create to mark them? Holidays can also be syncretic. They can combine old rituals with new meanings. A winter solstice festival might once have been about survival and light. Later, it could become a religious holiday or a time to honor a legendary figure. And this blending of an old and new happens in every culture. In your world, think about how holidays have changed over time. Maybe a holy day for an ancient sun god is now a patriotic day for a modern empire with images of the sun blazoned on everyone's clothing. Maybe an old war victory is now celebrated as a day of peace. Blending traditions can add depth to these holidays. When thinking about the origins of holidays, it's also important to think about who is creating the holidays. Is it something that arose organically? Was it something that was created by a religious leader and is deeply tied to faith and worship? Is it tied to a government? Was it a national holiday, maybe declared by a monarch? Did local communities start it, maybe through festivals tied to a village or a region? Did those spread to other regions? And maybe the actual reasons have changed over time as it's spread. Are they just folk holidays born from the everyday lives of farmers or workers or travelers? If they come from government, they might feel official and grand. If they come from people, they might feel simple. The origins of a holiday can shape how it's celebrated, who cares about it, maybe even whether it's acceptable to be celebrated. You also need to think about how holidays might end, how they might be forgotten over time. Not every holiday lasts. Some can fade away when they lose meaning. Maybe a king would create a day to celebrate his rule, but after his fall, the people just stop caring. There's a new king, there's a new ruler in town. Maybe a religious holiday could die out when a new faith takes over or when there's changes in the theology of that faith. Forgotten holidays can tell a story too. They can show a culture changing, what it leaves behind. Maybe some people are still clinging to those old traditions. Think about what's been lost in your world. What was celebrated? Who misses those celebrations? Are people trying to bring them back? Moving beyond the origin of holidays, we also know that holidays can take many forms. Some are grand, public, some are small and private. Each serves a different purpose, tells a different story about a culture. In your world building, you can use a variety of holidays that'll make your world feel richer. So you could have public holidays. Those are for everyone. They celebrate things that matter to an entire nation, kingdom, or group. These holidays are often tied to major events in history, like the Independence Day, or victories in a war, or the founding of a nation. Governments often use public holidays to create unity and pride among the people. Think about Victory Day, National Founders Day, Independence Day. These purpose there is to unite people, promote loyalty, promote patriotism, celebrate shared identity. In your world, decide what big moments in history are remembered by everyone, and those will likely be your public holidays. You also have religious holidays. Those focus on faith and worship, honor gods, saints, or spiritual events. It might involve fasting, prayer, offerings, or pilgrimages. And these can mark cycles like the solstice or harvest or a sacred calendar. Think about things like Easter, Yule, or holy days of saints. And they connect people with their faith and create shared rituals of worship. So if your world has religions, think about how those might shape holidays. Are the holidays solemn, like a day of fasting? Are they joyful, like a festival of lights? And how do those holidays reinforce and illustrate the effect of that faith or that religion on your world? You also might have just very hyper local holidays, right, that are tied to a specific town or maybe even a region or a group. They could celebrate a local hero or a unique tradition that's developed over time in a town or an event that's only important to that community. And those holidays could give people a sense of belonging to that smaller group. So the certain village that has a harvest festival in a cave every year, or a city's founding day, maybe a regional market or fair that celebrates local pride and traditions and history and brings people together. Maybe once a year, everybody from the region gets together, right? And that's this time of shared culture where even though you might have different cultures in different towns, everything is brought together and changes. Think about how regions in your world celebrate differently. What makes each area unique? Local holidays are a good way to show variety in your world. You also have holidays that happen at the smallest scale, those personal and family holidays, holidays that mark life events like births or weddings or funerals. Some families might have their own traditions, like an annual feast or a day of remembrance for a lost loved one. Think about birthdays. Think about every year, your hero visits the grave of a family member. Even if these holidays don't appear in your story, knowing how people are celebrating their personal milestones, it can add depth below, right, to your stories. You also have commemorative holidays, and these holidays are days that remember the past. You could honor heroes or mourn a tragedy, reflect on some important moment in history. These can often be solemn holidays, thinking about struggles and sacrifices of people. You also have seasonal holidays, so holidays that are tied to the changing seasons, things that mark planting, harvesting, solstices. These are practical holidays that help prepare for the year ahead, or maybe they mark certain days on the calendar. But they can also be joyful celebrations, right? Thinking about harvest festivals, spring celebrations, midwinter feast. They mark the passage of time for people. They celebrate nature's cycles. They keep people aware of nature's cycles. Um, if you had a world with unusual seasons or climates, you could have seasonal holidays that are really unique, like a desert culture that celebrates the blooming of flowers, or a tundra culture that marks the return of the sun after months of darkness. You also have cultural holidays. Now, cultural holidays could celebrate things like art, music, language, or other aspects of the culture. They could maybe honor a famous poet or a famous artist, honor the invention of writing or a traditional craft type. Um, and that helps the culture to take pride in their achievements and pass those on to the next generation. So, if your world has rich traditions in art or storytelling, those holidays could highlight those aspects of the culture. But what purpose do holidays serve? They're not just for fun or rest. They're tools that shape how people think, how they feel, how they act, how they commemorate, what they believe. So, when building a world, understanding what holidays do will help you make them more meaningful, more believable, have more of an impact on your story. Every holiday has a function, whether it unites a group, maybe it's for passing down traditions, or maybe it's just to spark conflict. A lot of holidays bring people together. They create a sense of belonging by giving everyone, whether on a family level or on a community level or on a national level, it gives everyone a shared experience. Think about parades, feasts, moments of silence. All of these things can make people feel like they're part of something larger than themselves. For many societies, holidays are a reminder that despite differences, the people share a common identity. So you might have a victory festival where all citizens, whether rich or poor, joins in celebration in a society. Or a harvest holiday where the farmers, the merchants, the nobles, everybody comes together to give thanks for the year's crops. When designing holidays, think about how they can be used to bring people together or even bring people together from different social stratas and how that could be used for storytelling. What shared values or experiences are being celebrated and what's a potential for conflict or misunderstanding. Holidays can also be used to draw boundaries, not just showing who belongs, but also who doesn't. By celebrating certain traditions, beliefs, or histories, holidays can define an us versus them mentality. They can reinforce cultural, religious, and national boundaries. That's not always a bad thing. It helps people feel connected to their group, but it can also cause division, right? So you could have religious holidays that excludes people who are not part of that religion. You can have national holidays that celebrates independence from a former oppressor, which could create tension with neighboring countries or with the former oppressor. Um, and you can think about that on a temporal scale too, right? That changes over time. So think about the United States and Great Britain and the amount of time that has passed and how, Independence Day in the United States is not something where we're really seeing ourselves in conflict anymore. It's more of something where we're just celebrating the past. Holidays can also be a way of just passing down traditions, keeping those old stories, customs, and values alive. Over time, holidays can become a bridge between generations, connecting the past with the present. They can teach people what their culture values and how they should behave. So, for example, a coming of age holiday where young people take an adult role for the day might help to bridge that generational gap. A yearly festival retelling the myth of a great hero through plays and songs can bridge the past with the present. In your world, think about the traditions that the people want to preserve. How do holidays help them do that? What customs are passed down through those celebrations? And that all arises out of values, right? What does that culture value and what do they want the next generation to know? Holidays can also be used for healing and renewal. They can help people recover from hardship. After a war, a famine, a disaster, a holiday can provide hope and a sense of normalcy or just even collective grieving. It's a way to mark your survival, to look forward to the future. Even on a smaller scale, holidays can give people that break from those struggles of daily life. So you could have a day of mourning for those who were lost in a great plague, followed by a feast celebrating the survivors. or a spring festival that symbolizes renewal after a particularly harsh winter that wipes out part of the population. Think about those challenges that your world's people, your societies have faced, and what holidays might they create to help them heal. Holidays also can be a tool for control. Governments and rulers often use them to reinforce loyalty, pride, and obedience. A national holiday can remind people of their shared identity and allegiance to the state. It can distract them from their problems like poverty or unrest. So, for an example, in your world building, you could have a ruler that declares a festival to celebrate their coronation with parades and speeches, right? And even the lowliest man attends to see just a glimpse of this new king. You could have a holiday that praises a nation's military might that's used to bolster recruitment and morale. So maybe all of the soldiers parade across in front of a leader. We see that even today. In your world, consider how leaders might use holidays for their own purposes. What messages do they send? How do they shape public opinion? Holidays also can be used to measure time. You have seasonal holidays that mark planting, harvesting, the start of winter, religious holidays that follow sacred calendars, commemorative holidays that mark special days that remind people of that passage of times and the events that shape their world. Think about how your holidays fit into your world's calendar. What seasons, events, or cycles do they reflect? How do they help people make sense of time? How do you need to spread them out so you're not having them all piled up around a seasonal change? But not all holidays support the status quo. Some holidays are born out of resistance or rebellion. They celebrate defiance against oppression, or they honor those who fought for change. These holidays might be unofficial or even outlawed, but they can hold deep meaning for the people who celebrate them. For example, you could have an underground festival that honors a fallen revolutionary leader, or a secret holiday that's celebrated in secret by an oppressed group hidden from the ruling power, whether that's a earthly power or religious power. In your world, think about how those holidays might serve as acts of resistance. Who celebrates them and why? What risks are involved? What's the potential cost? So we know why they exist, but how are holidays celebrated? A holiday it's not just a date that you put on the calendar in your world building, it's an event. The way that people celebrate tells everyone about what the holiday means. It's about action, it's about senses, it's about symbolism. A well designed holiday should feel alive because it should be tied to what the people do, what they see, what they hear, what they feel in a day. And that starts with ritual. Rituals are at the heart of holidays. They could be solemn, they could be festive, they could be simple, they could be elaborate, but rituals create structure. They give people a way to participate, whether it's lighting a candle, dancing in the streets, offering a prayer. Make rituals meaningful. Maybe the priest walk through the fields spreading water before harvest time. Maybe you have a national holiday with parades, speeches, fireworks, right, to celebrate independence. Sound familiar? Think about the actions tied to your holiday. What do people do, and how do those rituals reflect the holiday's purpose? Think not just of ritual, though, think also of symbols, symbolism, the objects. Every holiday has its symbols. These can be physical objects like a flag, a wreath, a sacred relic. They can be abstract ideas like hope, renewal, sacrifice. But symbols help connect people with the meaning of the holiday. Maybe you have a festival that uses torches to symbolize the triumph of light over darkness, or a mourning day where people only wear white as a sign of remembrance. In your world, decide what symbols define your holidays. Are they tied to the religion, to the nature, to some event in history? How do people interact with those symbols? Do they carry them? Do they display them? Do they offer them as an offering? Beyond symbols, food and drink often also play a central part in holidays. Feasting brings people together, gives them something to share. Fasting does as well. Specific dishes or ingredients can mark symbolic meanings. Some holidays um, might mark their times through fasting as times of restraint and reflection. So you could have a harvest festival with roasted meats, fresh bread, seasonal fruits, or a religious fast where only water and plain bread are allowed for a day. In your world, think about what the people eat or they don't eat on holidays. What are those? How is that tied to the holidays meeting? What's shared communally? What's kept private? Beyond food, you also have music, dance, performance, art. Holidays are often filled with sound and movement. Music and dance are ways to express joy or grief or devotion. You have Plays, parades, reenactments that can bring history or myth to life and also be great stages for your storytelling. These performances can make holidays feel vibrant and memorable. A solstice festival could have villagers dancing around a bonfire to the rhythm of drums. You could have a victory day with a parade reenacting and a reenactment of a famous battle. But consider those sounds, those movements, consider the smells that define your holiday. Is it lively and loud and smelly? Is it quiet and reflective? What kinds of performances take place? Who participates? And one of the most visual elements for your holidays and your storytelling are the decorations and the visuals. What people see on a holiday sets the tone. You can have decorations that include banners or candles, flowers, natural elements like leaves or snow. Maybe you have costumes and special clothing that can add to the visual impact. How do characters encounter that? You could have a spring festival where houses are covered in fresh blossoms, or maybe a day of mourning where everyone wears black armbands. In your world, think about how the people decorate for the holidays. Who's doing the decorating? What colors, shapes, or materials do they use? And how do those visuals reflect the holidays theme? Holidays are this time often of inclusion, right? Many holidays focus on bringing people together through shared meals or group activities, communal prayers that help people feel connected. And these can make the holidays more than just individual celebrations. It is also bring a way to bring outside characters in, right? As you're telling a story. In your world, decide how the people come together during the holidays. What actions help them feel like part of a group? From where do they come? From how far away do they come? Is there a central gathering place? Also, think about the roles of maybe gifts and offerings in a holiday, right? Giving is a common tradition in many holidays across the world. Gifts might be exchanged between people, or offerings might be made to gods or ancestors, and the act of giving often reflects gratitude, generosity, devotion. Think about a religious holiday where people leave offerings of food and flowers at a shrine. What's the role of these types of gifts and offerings in your world? What's given? Why is it given? How does that fit into your holiday's purpose? Moving beyond how holidays are celebrated, it's also important to remember that there are politics behind a holiday. Holidays aren't usually just about celebration. They're often tools for shaping how people think and behave. Rulers, governments, other powerful groups can use holidays to promote loyalty, to reinforce identity, to control populations. You can also have holidays that are a form of resistance or a way for the powerless to push back against authority. So, in world building, the politics of holidays can add layers of conflict and meaning to your setting. You might have state controlled holidays, so governments can create or control holidays to strengthen their power. These holidays often celebrate the state or maybe their leaders or certain victories. They're designed to remind people of their loyalty, to make them feel proud to be part of a nation. They're often grand and public, with parades, speeches, and displays of power. Like a monarch declaring a holiday to mark the day that he was coronated, complete with feasting and fireworks. Or you might have a revolutionary government that establishes Liberation Day to celebrate the overthrow of the old regime. In your world, think about how the rulers, how those in power use holidays to their advantage. What message do they want the people to hear? How do they use the holiday to build loyalty or build national identity, or regional, local, even identity? Holidays also in your world building can be used as a tool of propaganda. They can tell a specific story, namely one that benefits those in power. A leader might exaggerate his role in a historic event or rewrite the meaning of a traditional holiday to align with their agenda. These holidays often come with ceremonies or symbols that reinforce that official narrative or the new narrative, right? A dictator might rename a harvest festival to honor their leadership, claiming credit for their nation's prosperity. In your world, decide how much of the history behind holidays is true. What parts are exaggerated or fabricated? How does propaganda shape the way people celebrate? Now, not all holidays are welcomed by those in power. Some are suppressed. They might celebrate a past regime, a forbidden religion, or a rebellious movement. Rulers often suppress these holidays to control dissent. However, suppressed holidays can become symbols of resistance, celebrated in secret. So, a conquering empire might ban the local New Year's festival, replacing it with their own calendar celebrations. And a rebel group could secretly gather to celebrate that outlawed day. Think about which holidays in your world might be seen as dangerous or subversive. Who celebrates them in defiance? What risks do they take? Holidays also can become a place of ideological battleground for cultural or religious disputes. The dominant group might try to erase or replace the traditions of a minority. Or two cultures might clash over how to celebrate the same event, each putting their own spin on its meaning. You could have a colonizing power replacing local harvest festival with their own religious holidays and forcing conversion. Or two regions of a kingdom arguing over whether a holiday honors a local saint or a national hero. In your world building, consider how holidays reflect those cultural tensions. Are there attempts to erase or rewrite traditions? Do different groups fight over their meaning? So, with all of this in mind, let's talk about the 10 steps to designing holidays for your world building. First, start with the basics. Every holiday begins with a reason. Ask yourself, what is the holiday about? Who celebrates it? Why is it important? Decide that core idea of the holiday, and once you have that, the rest will follow. Second, link the holidays to history. Again, holidays don't just come out of thin air, they're born from events and myths that matter to people who celebrate them. Tie the holiday to a specific event in your world's timeline. If the event is distant, think about how its meaning might have changed over time. Third, reflect the culture. Holidays are a mirror of the people who celebrate them. They show what a culture values, what it fears, and what it honors. Use it to highlight unique aspects of your world. Think about what matters most to your world's people. Is it survival, freedom, faith, family? Design holidays that reflect those values. Fourth, consider geography. Land shapes the lives of its peoples, and holidays often grow from the natural environment. In your world, think about how geography influences daily life, what holidays would arise from the seasons, the climate, and the landscape. Fifth, add meaningful rituals. Rituals bring a holiday to life. They should connect to the holiday's purpose, and they should make it feel real. When designing rituals, think about the sensory details. What do people see? What do they hear? What do they eat? What do they feel? This is what is going to carry through in your story. The more vivid the rituals, the more alive your holiday will feel. Six, decide who participates. Holidays can be for everyone, or they can be just for specific groups. In your world, think about how inclusive or exclusive each holiday is, who celebrates it, and who feels left out. 7, think about symbols. Symbols make holidays memorable. They should reflect the holiday's origin and purpose. Choose symbols that are simple, that are clear, and are meaningful. It should be something people can easily recognize and connect with a holiday. 8, account for change. Remember that holidays evolve over time. Old traditions fade, new ones emerge, and the original meaning might even change completely. In your world, decide how much of the holiday's original purpose has survived. How do people today connect with its traditions, and how do people connect with those old traditions? Number 9, place it in a calendar. Holidays happen at specific times for specific reasons. In your world, if your world has a unique calendar, think about how holidays fit into it. Do they follow lunar cycles? Do they align with solstices? Do they mark historic dates? And finally, 10, create conflict and division for your storytelling. Not all holidays are universally loved. Some people might resent a holiday's meaning, disagree with its origins, or simply feel excluded. You can use holidays as sources of tension along with celebration. In your world, think about how and why holidays create division. If I can get one point across here, designing a holiday for your world is about more than just filling up a calendar with dates and names. It's about the people, their history, beliefs, and identity. Start with those big ideas, what the holiday means, who celebrates it, and why it exists. Then add the details, the rituals, the symbols, the time of the year. And finally, think about how that all fits into your world's culture and history.